Welcome back to Press Pause. I don't know how many of you remember Big John Hall, a Southern gospel singer from Fort Worth, Texas. He was a big guy and had a great baritone bass voice who began singing and touring in the 60s. Trinity often had him come to sing way back in the 70s and 80s when Pastor Robert Johnson was pastoring here. Big John Hall passed away last Tuesday, September 29th, at the age of 81. And when I heard the news, I was reminded of the times that I would come as a teenager to Trinity to hear him sing. He sang songs like "The King is Coming," "How Big is God," "Rise and Be Healed." And the one I especially remember him singing is "The Lighthouse." You know, lighthouses are towers that emit light and serve as a navigational aid for pilots of ships. They are found along coastlines, sometimes marking danger. Their lights are especially helpful when caught in a storm, as its light offers a beacon of hope. In the midst of the storm, a sailor knows that he is to set his eyes on land, so he looks for that light from the lighthouse. And he knows that that light will not be affected by the storm. If he keeps his eyes on the waves or another boat, he may end up being lost. I think of the disciples in the midst of the storm on the Sea of Galilee. Jesus wasn't with them because he had stayed behind to pray, and they had struggled all night long to stay afloat. And all of a sudden, they thought they saw a ghost that was approaching them, and they were terrified. But in reality, it was Jesus coming out to them, walking on water, and he calls out to them and says, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." And Peter calls out to Jesus in Matthew 14:28, and he says, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." And Jesus responds by saying, "Come." Verse 29 continues, "Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink, crying out, 'Lord, save me.' Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. 'You of little faith,' he said, 'why did you doubt?'" You know, as long as Peter had his eyes on Jesus, the storm could not affect him because he was doing the impossible. He was walking on water. The key was to focus on Jesus. In the storms of life, Jesus is our lighthouse. As we focus on him, just as sailors focus on the lighthouse on land, we need not fear because Jesus will guide us to safety. He will help keep us together. He will keep us above the storm, experiencing the impossible, just like Peter did by walking on water. Only Jesus offers us hope and light in the midst of the storm. So I encourage you to keep your eyes focused on Jesus, your lighthouse. We are again in lockdown, but Jesus will help us get through it. Don't become discouraged. Just focus on him. So I sign off today reciting the words to the song "The Lighthouse" in memory of Big John Hall, who served Jesus faithfully and shone the light of Jesus wherever he sang. "There's a lighthouse on the hillside that overlooks life's sea, and when I'm tossed, it sends out a light that I might see. And the light that shines in darkness now will safely lead us o'er. If it wasn't for the lighthouse, my ship would be no more." Everybody that lives around us says, "Tear that lighthouse down. The big ships, they don't sail this way anymore. There's no use of it standing round." Then my mind goes back to that stormy night when just in time I saw the light. Yes, the light from that old lighthouse that stands there on the hill. And I thank God for the lighthouse. I owe my life to him, for Jesus is the lighthouse, and from the rocks of sin, he has shone a light around me that I could clearly see. If it wasn't for the lighthouse, tell me, where would my ship be?